Welcome back to the Wisdom by Harry YouTube channel. My name is Harry.
And I'm Mary. We're so excited to have you here today for another fascinating episode.
It feels like every week there's a new headline about electric vehicles, right? And we all kind of have this idea in our heads of who's going to come out on top.
Yeah.
But there's been some news lately that I think really shakes things up.
Oh, yeah.
So today, we're going to dig into some recent reports about two big players in the EV game.
Okay.
And we're going to try to figure out if we're seeing a real shift in who's actually leading the pack. We're going to look at their earnings,
Right.
how many cars they're actually selling, all that stuff.
So I'm ready.
By the end of this deep dive, hopefully you'll understand the key numbers.
Okay.
What's causing these changes?
Right.
And maybe even get a sense of what this means for the future of EVs.
Right.
Especially if you're thinking about buying one,
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be following this industry. What was once a clear picture of who is in the lead is getting a lot more complicated, and that's great news for you as a consumer. More options, more innovation, more to consider.
So let's jump right into the money. One of the companies we're talking about, they're based in Shenzhen. They reported a huge annual revenue for 2024, 777 billion yuan.
Wow.
Yeah, which, to give you a sense of scale, it's about $107 billion.
Okay.
Or if you're across the pond, 83 billion.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the other company we're looking at,
Yeah.
their revenue for the same period was $97.7 billion.
So there's almost a $10 billion difference there.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is the growth. The Shenzhen company saw their revenue increase by 29% compared to the year before.
Whoa.
That kind of jump in a market this competitive, it's not just impressive.
Yeah.
It suggests that something is really working for them and that maybe they're figuring out how to capture a bigger piece of the market going forward.
Yeah, and one of the reports I was reading, they used the word leapfrog to describe it, which really gives you that picture, right, of them just surging ahead.
Right.
But here's where things get a little tricky. When you just look at electric vehicles, battery-powered cars.
EVs.
Right. The sales numbers for 2024 are actually really close.
Really?
The Shenzhen company sold about 1.76 million EVs.
Okay.
And the other company sold just a smidge more, 1.79 million,
So neck and neck.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this whole other piece of the puzzle we have to consider.
What's that?
Hybrids. If you look at the total number of vehicles sold, including hybrids, the picture changes completely. The Shenzhen company actually sold a record 4.3 million vehicles globally in 2024.
So they're playing a different game then, it seems.
It looks that way, right?
One company is focusing almost exclusively on pure EVs. The other's got this whole hybrid thing going on.
Right.
Which means they're appealing to a much wider range of customers.
Exactly. Because not everyone's ready to go full electric.
Right. Some people want that option of gas as a backup, or maybe they just haven't fully bought into the EV thing yet.
And it's not just about looking at what they did last year. It's also about what moves they're making now that kind of hint at what their strategy is for the future.
I like that, looking for those clues. So what are they up to?
Well, for starters, the Shenzhen company just launched a new, more affordable EV model.
Oh, interesting.
It's called the Qian, and the starting price in China is 119,800 yuan.
Okay. And how does that compare to their competitor?
So a basic version of the other company's Model 3 in China,
Yeah.
it goes for 235,500 yuan.
Wow, almost half the price.
I know.
That is aggressive.
It's a huge difference. And you got to think, for a lot of people, that kind of price gap could be the deciding factor.
Absolutely. Especially in a market like China where price sensitivity can be a big deal.
Right. And it makes you wonder if this is going to force the other company to rethink their pricing, not just in China, but globally.
Yeah, this could set off a whole chain reaction.
Exactly. But it's not just about price.
Wow.
The Shenzhen company is also making some pretty big claims when it comes to technology.
Like what?
Okay, get this. Their founder recently announced a new battery charging technology
Okay.
that can supposedly charge a car in 5 minutes.
5 minutes, really?
That's what they're saying.
That's incredibly fast.
Right. Think about what that would mean for people who are worried about range anxiety.
Totally. That's one of the biggest hurdles for people thinking about switching to EVs.
And to put it in perspective, the other company's supercharger system, which is already pretty fast, takes about 15 minutes to charge a car.
So this would be a significant improvement, but it's still early days.
Oh, absolutely. We need to see if they can actually deliver on this promise.
Right. The real world performance, how reliable it is, the infrastructure needed to support it, all that matters.
For sure. But the fact that they're even aiming for this kind of breakthrough, I think it shows how focused they are on making EVs more convenient for everyday people.
Agreed.
And on top of the charging thing, they also announced that their God's Eye advanced driver assistance technology.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's going to be included for free in all their models, starting in February 2025.
Wow. So features like lane keeping and adaptive cruise control, maybe even more advanced autonomous stuff?
Potentially, yeah.
And all of that will be standard.
That's the plan.
That's huge, especially for safety.
Right. And it might put pressure on other car makers to start offering similar features as standard too.
Definitely.
Now, while all this is happening, we can't forget about the bigger picture stuff, right?
Right.
There are all these external factors that can influence how the EV market plays out.
Oh, for sure.
One of the reports we looked at talked about a potential backlash against the CEO of the other company because of his past political affiliations.
I can see how that might be a concern for some people.
And there's also his involvement in some international political discussions, which has generated some strong opinions.
Right.
And then you've got the whole global political and economic landscape to consider.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge factor.
Chinese EV makers, including the Shenzhen company, they've faced tariffs in places like the US and the EU.
Yeah, which makes it harder for them to compete in those markets.
Right. And it can even affect how much you pay for a car, depending on where you live.
For sure.
And then there's the situation within China itself. They've been dealing with a property market downturn, slower economic growth,
Right.
and a lot of local government debt.
All of which can affect how much people are willing to spend on big purchases like a car.
Exactly. But even with all these challenges, investors seem to be pretty bullish on the Shenzhen company.
Bullish.
Yeah, like they have a lot of confidence in their future.
Okay.
The reports mention that their shares, which, by the way, are backed by Warren Buffett, they've jumped by more than 50% since the start of the year.
That's a big jump.
It is. And it suggests that the financial markets really believe in their long-term strategy and their ability to keep innovating and grabbing more market share.
It's like they're placing a bet on their success.
Yeah, pretty much. So to sum all this up for you, it's clear that the EV landscape is changing. The Shenzhen company has overtaken a major rival in terms of revenue. They're killing it in overall vehicle sales thanks to their hybrid offerings. Their new, more affordable EVs are shaking things up, and they're making waves with their new charging technology and driver assistance features.
It's an exciting time to be watching this all unfold.
It really is.
But we also have to keep in mind all those external factors we talked about.
Right. The political stuff, the economic stuff, all of it plays a role.
And those things can change quickly.
For sure.
It makes you wonder what it all means for the future of the car industry, really, and for the adoption of EVs on a global scale.
Totally. So as you go about your day, maybe keep this in mind. Will this revenue lead for the Shenzhen company hold up? Will hybrids continue to be a big part of the market? Or will everyone go all electric eventually? Will these new technologies they're talking about really pan out? And how will all those bigger forces, the politics, the economics, how will those shape things going forward? Lots to think about.
Absolutely. The next few years are going to be really interesting.
I can't wait to see what happens.
Me neither.